My guest today is Jeff Cole, the CEO and co-founder of Hidden Level, a company that exists to provide airspace awareness using passive radar and RF sensors to detect objects in a variety of operational environments. They've made rapid progress, including deploying their sensors on extremely short time frames and going from prototype to a program of record in 18 months. Jeff joined me to talk about the problem space, the company he's building, and the lessons he's learned. I hope you're going to enjoy the conversation.
Thousands of companies show up to sell their technology to the U.S. Department of Defense each year, but so few will transition from proof of concept to true production across the valley of death. The select few who do, their stories are rarely told. Until now. I'm Noah Scheinbaum, and this is Crossing the Valley.
All right, everyone. My guest today on Crossing the Valley is Jeff Cole, the CEO and co-founder of Hidden Level. Jeff, we're really grateful. I know you're on the road. You got some big travel ahead. Thanks for making a little bit of time to talk with us.
No, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to jump right in. We're not pulling any punches. Let's start with getting right to the meat of the issue here. Jeff, what is the problem that motivates you to solve in the world? What do you get up in the morning thinking about every day?
Yeah, so I've spent the last 20 years of my career working with the Defense Department, the intelligence community, aviation partners, folks like NASA, FAA, but then also companies like Google and Apple and Disney and Amazon, et cetera. The thing that really gets me excited is things flying around us. Everything from small drones, stratospheric balloons, general aviation. As an 80s kid who grew up like watching the Jetsons and playing with Legos and stuff, like building and what's the future of the sky is always something I found really intriguing. I don't know if you can see the Snoopy art behind me, but I'm a big Snoopy fan and Snoopy going to the moon and all that. So that's what really excites me. And I've been very fortunate to spend my whole career working around technology and creating technology and working with partners to help solve the hard problems of our airspace and the complexities behind that. And then with that, similarly, is also RF communications. I think about when I was a kid, I walked up to my television, it was a piece of furniture and turned a knob. And now everything is wireless, and the benefits to that, but also the challenges of managing spectrum and deconfliction and how little things that can interfere with GPS can basically shut down an airport or interfere with turning on power and water. So fundamentally, I just saw this opportunity to create something where we could help solve hard problems. And ultimately, when I'm done looking back, I hope to see burritos being delivered with drones, people getting in craft on rooftops, flying from the other side of a city to the other, and also providing and keeping our troops safe and our partners as well.
I think that puts you squarely in the bucket of techno optimist, techno accelerationist, somebody who is excited about a ever flying future. I will admit there are parts of that are super intriguing. There's parts that are scary. I think that's the nature of change, but it's important that we have folks thinking about it, which is, I know exactly how you spend a lot of your time, Jeff. Give us, before we dive too much into the company, and there's a lot of stories to tell, just give us a little bit more about your background. Like, how is this the set of interests that you've found yourself enmeshed in, and what has prepared you to be a company founder at this stage of life?
Yeah, it's a broad swath of experiences over the years. I was born in upstate New York in Syracuse. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Syracuse, yes, go Orange. We have, Syracuse University here, but it's also an epicenter for radar and sensing technology, communications, electronic warfare. You've got Lockheed Martin, SRC, Saab, Huntington Ingalls, companies like TTM that support the networks around all here in upstate New York. And just down the road in Rochester, you've got Raytheon, et cetera. So it wasn't hard to be intrigued by that as a young kid who flew RC planes and like playing with radio controlled devices and building things. I didn't go very far. I went to school in Buffalo and then came back to Syracuse and started working for a company called Census that later became Saab, where the main part of my work was working with the FAA and also DoD and solving complex challenges around seeing things flying above us. And that's just been my passion for a really long time. After Working at Saab, I ended up going over to a company called SRC, which is a not-for-profit defense company that's been around for more than 70 years now, similar to Lockheed here in the area. I spent a lot of time working with the Army and other aspects of DoD intelligence community, but during that time there, I also spent a lot of time working with folks like Google and Apple and Disney, and you might ask yourself why, and Amazon. Early days, more than a decade ago now, there was a lot of talk about drone delivery and everything from delivering defibrillators to blood and all kinds of different things. And these huge companies were like, how do we solve these complex problems? There were other companies that were concerned about the potential use of drones with cameras for industrial espionage and landing on their buildings and getting information that they didn't want. So it was a really interesting experience getting to work with that sector and watching how fast they go. When I first started working with Astro Teller and Sergey on a pretty cool project that you now know as Wing. Many, many years ago, there was a few of us that spun out of that, Adam Bree from Skydio, myself, that became founders. But it was interesting to see the mentality and how fast they were going. And this was the opportunity where I first saw the synergies between safety and security needs. And I went back to SRC and said, look, I think there's a huge opportunity here to build a commercial entity that is dual use focused, builds technology much quicker, faster, exportable, and also the concept of subscriptions and services. Like, how do we outfit the entire United States and major cities in a more cost-effective manner to scale drone delivery, urban air mobility, and also address national security concerns? So that's my background in a nutshell. I've spent years developing and working on very cutting edge radar systems, active, passive, comm systems, electronic warfare, phased array, all kinds of weird gobbly-gob and engineering terms, I guess you could say. But then also getting to work with some incredible companies along the way and seeing their mission and honestly seeing the synergy between the industries.
That's a pretty incredible list of people. Anytime it starts with Sergey and Astro Teller, I expect it's going to end with Elon Musk. We didn't get an Elon shout out in there, but that's pretty cool, Jeff. You've laid out I don't even want to call it a problem, because I think the way you framed it is the optimistic future we're running towards, as well as, yes, with every advancement, there's that there's the duality of things, which, we're going to have all these things flying around. We also need to make sure they're in the right places. We know where they are, and we have some control over our operating environment. And so enter hidden level. Maybe give us a little bit of the earliest days. Like, how did the company actually come about? And when you opened the doors, what was your first area of focus? What did you think you were going to do? You can go commercial first, you can go government first. What was the initial strategy?
We have followed pretty much the strategy to the T from day one.
That's rare. I was always told the plan doesn't survive first contact. That's pretty good.
And it's through a lot of experience along the way, kind of falling down, getting up, fail fast mentality was something I took when I was working with the folks at Google and Prime Air early on. In NASA, it was fail fast because we're going to learn something. So kind of run at the chaos and learn something. Through that process, when I was very fortunate at SRC to be one of the co-founders of Griffin Sensors, which was this wholly owned subsidiary, we started learning a lot about the industry and ultimately how it was going to scale. And it helped shape ideas and concepts around what could be the future. SRC ultimately said, hey, we want to bring the company back together into one. The defense side of the business was really booming. And I said, hey, I have this passion. I want to go do this. I think there's something here on a commercial first kind of offering, basically commercial to defense versus defense to commercial. It's really hard to take technology out of the defense world and bring it to the commercial world. It's another thing to develop with commercial intent and then bring it to the defense sector. There's still challenges behind that. But if you have sort of the background that myself and my team have from working at it so long, a lot of the do's and don'ts and how to do that. So that was really the inspiration. And also there was this pivot in the venture world. They were starting to look elsewhere. You were seeing investment in drone technology, drone delivery, urban air mobility. And there was a little bit of early defense tech, which is now hyper focused area for venture. But it was just an opportunity to take a shot. I like taking, shots. Like, life is short. You only live once. And This was an opportunity to take the experiences and carry it forward and the vision.
Is there a moment, do you remember in the early days where you're like, oh man, this might actually happen? Did you have doubts and then there's a moment where you're like, okay, this is happening. This is real. What was the pinch me moment for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. Doubts are something that tell me that it's worth trying. And anything that's worth trying is hard. The pinch me moment was our first investor, Tom Moss. I remember we knew nothing about venture. We knew a lot about the technology, the customer set, and we went from six-figure jobs in comfortable positions to sitting in a basement eating peanut butter jelly sandwiches and folding tables. And we had our first contract pretty quickly with NASA and what is now Joby. At that time, it was Uber Elevate. And I met Tom Moss through Adam Bree, actually, at Skydio, who introduced me as one of his first investors. And Tom just said, hold my hand, I'll walk you into this venture world, and introduced me to a lot of folks. And he committed to his first check and then called me about 48 hours later and tripled that check and was like, all right, we're going to go. And I flew out to California and he walked me in and introduced me to ultimately the Quest Venture folks who became our Series Seed leads. And then I ended up meeting Gary Lauder and Laura Lauder, who ended up also coming in early in the seed round and getting to know these incredible folks. That was the pinch me moment. That was, this is going to be real. I remember talking to my team when they were first joining us, and I'm like, hey, I guarantee I'll get you back to your salary, health benefits, and try and get you like a minimal 401k within the first 12 months. Otherwise, you can go back and do whatever you'd like. And we did that. And that moment was, this is real. We can actually really do this. So between Tom and meeting those folks and having their investment, yeah, that was that pinch me moment that this can actually happen.
Yeah, there's something about putting your vision out in the world and having someone else say, yeah, I'm in, I'm down with that, or I want to give that a try, that I think is super rewarding, exhilarating, just it's the wind beneath your sails. Super cool to hear how that's played out for you. So as you guys opened the doors, Jeff, and you said, all right, we're going to really do this thing, and you had your small team of folks, you had your kind of initial team of investors, what did the customer side, what did the business side of the organization look like? Did you have a design partner in mind or in hand, or what were those early conversations like? Did people get it right away? So lay that out for us.
Yeah, so we're a vertically integrated company. We develop everything in-house. So that's kind of a unique thing that differentiates us. Everything, all the software, the firmware, the phased arrays, mechanical chassis, we do it all in-house. We did get support of our contract manufacturers as we design custom PCBs, but we don't manufacture them. And some of them having the belief and saying, this is a team that we know delivers like real serious tech and has immense customer knowledge and also just the ability to walk in a lot of doors that others don't, that they were willing to invest and partner with us early. The first folks, like having NASA and having Joby in early really was a stamp of approval. We had been working with those folks in the past and they said, are you going to carry the vision forward? Like we see the airspace as a brand new, it's a wild, wild west. It is something that we're scaling into. And then we also were talking to our government customers who said, are you guys going off and doing your own thing and hanging your own shingle? We said, yeah. And we talked about the technology, the passive nature, passive radar, multifunction. And they were like, that sounds incredible. Let us know how it's going. And we stayed in touch through the process. And I remember right before COVID, one of the customers, the Army customer, reached out to us and said, are you guys going to be okay? We'd like to get you on contract right away so that you can start putting pen to paper on your design, getting us updated. And ultimately, that is what turned into a very large program for us. So we were fortunate to be a team that had a past of delivering incredible tech to customers and meeting their needs and solving hard problems. We were very fortunate to have that respect, and that helped us immensely in those early days and people believing in us when we were in a basement. I remember talking with the folks at NASA and actually at Uber, and they joked, they're like, that's a furnace behind you. You're like, you're actually in basement. Well, we know you guys can do this. So I was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like you also you stacked I can understand from a venture perspective why folks like this, right? Venture capitalists don't want to play fair games. They want unfair fights. And you all had the reputation and the history of being able to deliver. It sounds like even the government kind of knew, or folks in the government knew some of what you were up to and were very clearly saying, hey, yeah, this is needed. This is important. One of the things that I think has become a little bit of a hallmark of what you all done is speed. You've done this at a very high velocity. And the program you mentioned, Jeff, and what that early touch point with the Army, I wonder if we can crack that open a little bit and give folks a view of how that evolved, because it seems like from the earliest curiosity to actually following through on both sides, you following through on your technical commitments and your delivery timelines, and the government following through on, hey, if you build this, we will buy it. It's a rare example, maybe an all too rare example of where both sides make commitments and deliver on them, and the result is fairly mutually beneficial. So maybe walk us through that initial conversation with the Army from where you left that story. What happened next? What did you all do to mature that relationship?
Yeah, so it was a combination of staying in touch, getting on contract with them, and showing them the technology coming to life. When we raised the Series seed, it was about going from nothing to a functioning product. The day one focus was a larger system that was our fixed infrastructure, where we provide airspace monitoring as a service, and everything from small dark drones, which are non-emitting drones, to fighter jets, general aviation, balloons, remote ID, all that. That was our infrastructure play. And we were talking to the customer, understanding what are the things that they want. And also they were immensely interested, as this technology had never existed in this form factor. Having this unique passive radar that could be paired with other systems that they already have and work off of existing RF energy out there, while simultaneously allowing them to detect RF emitters in 3D space. So through that process, the customer was like, okay, now it's real. We want to move you off of a kind of a science project to an IDIQ. So then they introduced us over to Booz Allen, who had been on the IDIQ, and said, hey, can you guys work with them? They're doing the C2. Let's integrate this. And we really like the product, but we want to put it on a vehicle, and we want it to be half the size, basically. It was about a 60-inch system. As an 80s kid who likes Legos, everything we do is around Lego modular. That's the commerciality of the technology. Build modules that can be used across different product lines and scale quickly, but they're also meant for other use cases. So we said, sure. And we went from our current product breaker to a prototype, which was half the size, in 6 months. And the customer was like, we'll take delivery of those systems. And kind of through the journey of that, we then also won an APFIT in 2023. In May of 2023, APFIT is used as the acceleration, procuring, and fielding of innovative technologies. We were one of 11 companies, and the U.S. Army used that to accelerate procurement of the initial 8 prototype systems. That technology immediately went into theater, and the customer said, it's working, and it's working well. And in the January timeframe, we ended up going to a program of record in 2024 on urgent capabilities. And we ended up raising $100 million last year in preempted rounds. Some folks like Gary Lauder, DFJ, Revolution, Costanoa, Washington Harbor, a lot of great partners, and folks like Lockheed and Booz Allen have been with us, and Lobby Capital along the way, doubling down on Pipeline, Quest, et cetera. We just have an incredible group of folks behind us. But that's the journey of how fast it went from, okay, that works. We want it half the size. We want to field program.
Okay, so before folks at home decide to incorporate a company and think it's all sunshine and rainbows, Jeff, that was an amazing laydown of kind of a corporate history in 2 minutes. Let's go back and unpack it. And I want to go back to the beginning. And let's start with, I assume it was an SBIR, right? That early, was that the first research and development contract for that, when they first wanted to get you on contract to see what you're doing?
We were doing like SBIR awards, small paper study SBIRs, just so we could write up the design of the technology we were building and show them.
So it's some way to start building a relationship, for them to follow along, for you to get access, to get on contract. Then when you said they wanted to move to the IDIQ, that's the delivery indefinite quantity. It's a vehicle. It's not even really it's a contract vehicle more than the money amount itself. Yeah. Now, when they introduced you to Booz, did they want you to sub to them on a broader vehicle, or were they they wanted you to work with them, meaning integrate? Booz is maybe the lead systems integrator. Parse that relationship out a little bit more, because partnership is a key. It's a key theme we talk about here on Crossing the Valley. Different startups and big companies have different relationships, and I'm curious to hear about yours.
Yeah, so Booz was the lead system integrator on the program and had the contract vehicle for scale. So that was how we met with them. It's something we design for, like fundamentally, like the knowledge we have around this industry. You have to design for interoperability. You got to work with all different types of systems. The customers want layered approaches and not necessarily vendor lock on any one solution. But they said, hey, Booz is the lead system integrator on this. They're doing the command and control piece and ultimately acting as the PM on the program. We'd like to integrate you here onto this program. And that's how we met at that time. Now, in my past and my team, we've worked with Booz Allen over the years. So it wasn't like a totally new relationship, but new team. And then it wasn't long after when I met the Booz Allen Ventures team, who then also became an investor in the company at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a unique relationship they have there. I think their ventures team is well positioned to integrate technology since they are primarily a services company. There's not that control internal competition that you sometimes see with these corporate venture arms. It can work quite well. So that's neat how that's played out for you. What was that? I mean, maybe share a little bit more about what made that partnership work. What have you learned about working with lead graders or primes? What do you think is important for startups to understand about the nature of that relationship?
Yeah, I mean, we have investment and work with a few. We have investment out of Lockheed Martin and Booz Allen. Lockheed's been in the company from very early days. Different types of partnerships between them. I'll say, I hear often from others like, hey, I'm working with so-and-so prime and they're going to open every door for me. That's not necessarily true. It's a two-way street, right? The work comes and goes, different things. I think you have to go into it eyes wide open around the partnerships and how it's working. There's a lot of also understanding of contractual obligations, colors of money, IP ownership. There's a lot of things you really want to make sure you understand. And as long as you do, these relationships can work really well. I think where the relationship sometimes you hear people talk about, or maybe it's more negative, is not necessarily it was done with ill intent. It's just, okay, what's the contract vehicle you're on? Is it a FAR, Part 12, 15, et cetera? Who owns IP? And you can sometimes get into these situations where you don't really necessarily know what all the contractual pieces are and the compliance aspects. And then when it's done, you realize, oh, well, they have ownership, this person has ownership, and it's not the way I thought. And sometimes that can cause frustration. But in general, working with these partners is super positive. We work with folks like Sierra Nevada Corp, Palantir. Great. It's been wonderful. And they're all different. No one is the same. You just need to understand what it's like working with them. And it can be super powerful partnerships. If done well, then you understand how the relationships are going to work.
Lay out for us, like, what was the reason to seek APFIT funds? Is that, what was that process like, and what did it do?
Yeah, crossing the valley of death. The APFIT is a way for you to cross the valley of death. One thing that's really challenging about government contracts and procurement is procurement cycle and understanding how it works. You can have a great product, but if the customer doesn't have a requirement, doesn't have congressional money, it can be really hard and the program can lose momentum or lose money. And for us, APFIT had been around. It started in 2022. We met the folks at OSD and we had learned about the program, and it's a government to government thing. So our customer wanted to scale and they didn't have the money for procurement of a lot of systems, but they wanted to scale. So they filed, the government customer, Army, filed for an APFIT award, and ultimately we won, which gave them $10 million in procurement funds to buy hardware, which was huge. As our program didn't exist, didn't have a requirement, hadn't been what they call palmed. For most folks that aren't familiar with how budget cycles work, palming happens 2 years prior to the budget approval. That's where APFIT was super important for us, and it allowed us to put that technology directly into the customer's hands and have them take it into theater. If that hadn't happened, there wouldn't be the pull like you have right now. It kept the momentum and the program just took off. And so APFIT is incredible program. It is very selective, but it's an incredible tool.
For folks who are thinking about this, if you don't have a customer that is hot under the collar trying to get your stuff and more of it faster, this is not a program for you, right? This is not Sibber. This is not a front door. This is not a, hey, let's experiment and see if we can build some traction. This is where you are, if the customer side is beyond validated, they're evangelizing for you, but there is a bureaucratic barrier between where you are and where the customer wants you to be. And this program helps gap. Is that a fair, maybe feel free to disagree or add anything, Jeff, in terms of who should be even considering this?
Yeah, to be very clear, APFIT is not something previously. Now, APFIT may change. They always have the ability to shift things around, but it was not for early tech. They used APFIT to procure some prototype systems, but the big chunk of that money was for the actual full programmed product. So what they call low rate initial production. It allowed them to place that low rate initial production order, which is one of the things I want to talk about is an exciting highlight moment for us was the customer said, this prototype's awesome, but we want the full product to do X, Y, and Z. And it aligned with where we were taking that product. And we went from a clean sheet of paper in 18 months to fielding fully production systems that are delivering right now to the Army. So as a part of the APFIT money, it allowed them to buy the prototypes, place the order for the LRIP systems and say, as soon as they're ready, we'll take delivery as fast as you can get them. So we went from clean sheet of paper to boom, get those done, building off of our Lego modular kind of concept. The customer came in and did what they call factory acceptance, which was the last piece of test for our program as the program transitioned in the early part of 24. And those systems are now being delivered on a monthly cadence and are going directly into theaters all around the world and having a real impact on the mission, which is super awesome for my team. And what I would say to others is there's a lot of programs out there. There's APFIT, there's SIBRs, there's TAC-FIs, STRAP-FIs, there's WILIFs. There's a lot of different types of colors of money and programs, and there's more popping up. We just heard about Army Fuse that just came out. There's a lot of things where the customers are trying to fund at all different levels. So even when you hear me talking about APFIT for procurement of product, there's other contracts now that you can get for early TRL to accelerate your efforts. So realistically, because you hear one person wins an APFIT and that may not be the right fit for you, there might be another one, and they're adding more opportunity.
Yeah, we'll have to cover Fuse on another episode, but there is. I think the common underlying theme is a motivated customer, a passionate and empowered champion who are they're not there to do work for you. They're there to do their jobs, and they are convinced that your technology or your product, your service is an unlock for them to do that and to do it better, faster, stronger, or more. The last part of this story, and then I know you've got some others, the last part of this story is transitioning this thing to record. Because you mentioned, Jeff, POM usually is 2 years higher.
Yeah. So the customer ultimately saw the technology as truly groundbreaking for them. It gave them this multifunction passive radar capability against everything from small dark drones, vehicles on the ground, other airborne threats, while also simultaneously detecting RF omniscience for them. It was a unique capability that they didn't have before. And we were very fortunate to have a directed requirement signed by the 4-star out of Army Futures, who signed that directed requirement, who then that same directed requirement was shortly signed later by the Army Chief of Staff. And that then took that to a program of record under urgent capabilities. So it was a really interesting process. And the reason they did that was, again, the Valley of Death doesn't really end until that program line makes it into the J books. And by doing that, they created a program 2 years ahead of schedule. And that was based on our ability to deliver these products 2 years ahead of schedule. And basically now, even though it didn't have any POM funding, it was a program line in which they could move money to keep the program moving and ultimately helping keep the warfighter safe. And it's an incredible path and a journey, and we're constantly working with the customers on what's next in the roadmap and making sure we're delivering. But that is a really unique and exciting path and journey that we were able to be a part of, and it speaks to the level of the technology and what we're trying to do and help with the mission.
Not something you hear every day, and so I appreciate you being willing to lay that one out for us. Again, speed as just a theme that I think it permeates your company's journey and how you all operate. You shared work you all did with Air National Guard base. And maybe just tell us a little bit about the process of what deployment looks like for you all. You're able to put this in the field so quickly.
Yeah. So a couple things, right? We have two sales side of the business. We sell hardware as commercial off the shelf to the end user, and then we have this subscription model. And ultimately, these business models were very intentional to make it easy for our customers to acquire solution, whether it's hardware that they want to take into countries or data as a service, which was done very important and with, I'll say, great effort and focus on our sides. And how do we put something in the market that's privacy compliant, didn't require a congressional mandate, and could scale very quickly? We deployed the infrastructure initially in 2021 in multiple regions around America, San Francisco, the Bay Area, Arlington, Texas, New York, and the National Capital Region. We had been working with U.S. Air Force and other customers on SBIRs that were subscribing to that, along with enterprise, commercial, state and local, Arlington PD, Joby, NASA, et cetera. And we were showing people the use case of how it works. Now people talk about this as a concept for something that could be a piece of Golden Dome. The work we had done with the Army really showed people this technology is real. So seeing is believing is everything. Real technology that's scalable, functioning, in a full production ilk. So what happened was in late 24, you started hearing about a lot of drones in the whole New England area. And actually my chief operating officer got a phone call at the Army-Navy game at 7 p.m. And they said, hey, we'd like you to deploy down to Stewart Air Force, Stewart International Guard Base. How quickly can you have it done? And by the way, we want you to partner with Palantir and integrate into their Foundry product, like right now. We had it all done and deployed by noon the next day. So that was the sensors were deployed on existing rooftop cell towers, integrated into Foundry, and we were providing data to multiple government agencies, state and local first responders, and enterprise users. It was like one of the first times everyone was able to work in concert. That was one of the beauties of this infrastructure, was a base commander got a chirp on their phone that there was a drone flying into restricted airspace, calls the New York State Police. They're like, we already have it on the display. We see it on the hidden level display. We're inbound. Within 7 minutes, they had that person apprehended. And that was really showcasing the expediency in which we could deploy, integrate with other partners, and then feed the data to government-controlled users through their networks and also state and local, and allow people to operate off of the same sheet of music. It was pretty awesome. And then that just continued to scale from there, multiple other incursions and successful apprehensions, but really a unique opportunity to showcase how quickly we could do these things and help solve a challenging problem.
It's clearly a problem that you guys are moving into a market with a ton of tailwinds. There was, I think, even just this morning, or maybe it was last night, news that another airport had to be shut down because we have drones. It's not only just the military, it's not just sports stadiums, but it's even in urban areas where these counter drone solutions, we're not exactly sure what this is going to look like yet. You can't be firing bullets into the sky. You can't be firing lasers at these things in environments. Sometimes it's netting. There's a lot of potential, maybe kinetic kill solutions, but the first step is knowing. And so the market for you guys seems absolutely massive. I'm kind of curious, Jeff, given where you guys are right now, and you've raised plenty of money to get after some of this stuff, like what is on your radar right now for the next 12 months?
It's a lot, and it's exciting. It's all hands on deck right now in the industry. I mean, as I mentioned, you just got back from Florida. We were one of the 10 companies that was invited to partake in Falcon Peak, LCS, a low-cost solution put on by DIU, which was an incredible opportunity to be selected out of the 100+ applicants. I think there were 118 applicants. And at that event, DIU took on red team testing, where they were showcasing detection, mitigation, the challenges of how it works in complex airspace in the US. For us right now, it's the amount of customers that were there asking about, can you do this? Where can we do that? partner with so-and-so. It's a wild time right now, and it's not just US, it's global. And we designed all of our tech for exportability. We have exportability licensing already for the technology. You're seeing this issue all over. As you mentioned, a lot of times in the past, these types of things you talk about in combat theaters, but they directly impact urban canyons and cities. So for us, there's a lot of scale right now. I'm very happy that along with our program of record, when the customer had to come in, they had to inspect our manufacturing readiness level to meet the level of demand that the customer intended. Our team's done an incredible job scaling production. We're building out more footprint. Right now, we're hiring more folks. We're spending more time all around the world. As I mentioned to you, I'm heading to Germany here shortly. It's quite an incredible time in getting to know who are the right partnerships. We're very focused on a lot of that right now and just trying to solve challenging problems while also working on our tech roadmap for what's next to scale our technology into a number of other modalities.
You've got a lot. What is most exciting to you?
It's really stepping back and just taking a deep breath. There was a handful of us when we started. We've got 130 employees now north of that. Soon it'll be more than that. It's kind of surreal at times looking at it. I can pull up at any point in time right on my phone right now and watch all the things flying in cities around the US. It was pretty wild. I was in a meeting with a customer and they said, "Hey, we just got a phone call. Somebody visually spotted." And I was like, "This one right here?" And impact like immediately to help solve the challenging problem. Also, at the same time, I'm one of the sitting board members on Commercial Drone Alliance, and seeing the work we're doing around enabling drone flight, urban air mobility. So it's kind of the things I mentioned to you that motivated me from when I was a young kid to starting the company. It's really exciting to see that stuff happening and seeing how much of an impact we can have on mission to keep people safe.
Is there another unmet need? Like if you weren't doing this, is there another company that you would go start? Give us maybe Jeff's call for startup.
Yeah, that's a tough one. There's so much right now. The defense industrial base is one that I've been talking about a lot right now around supply chain optimization. And what does that mean? Well, there's so much that impacts supply chain, where parts are coming from, parts availability, pricing changes, ships getting stuck at sea, other things like that. We've been working with some folks around concepts, around helping better monitor that and help people make very quick decisions. It's also, and this is really tough, it's exciting to see more of the expansion of the defense industrial base, just the industrial base in general in the US. So seeing things manufactured here, chips, other things like that. I will also say there's a lot to do on the mitigation side. How do you deal with drones flying in the airspace? Because to your point, it's very different when you're in a combat theater versus you're over a major city like DC or New York. And there's some incredible technology out there right now that's been making headways and doing that, but there's definitely a lot of room for growth as well. I think there's some incredible tech companies. There's like APPIFIT and companies like Fordham and whatnot that are making some big headway through drones that shoot nets and ways to disrupt energy to help deal with these drones safely in the airspace. But that's another area. Unmanned surface vehicles, unmanned ground vehicles. There's a lot of things to play. But I've been spending a lot of time thinking about the optimization of the industrial base as an area that is pretty compelling.
It's a hot one right now. All right, let's do two things. First off, if folks are interested in your mission and they want to get involved in hidden level, maybe they want to join your team, they want to learn more.
Look, go to our website, go to our careers page, reach out to us on LinkedIn. We're very active on there. Shoot me a message on there. I love connecting with people however I can. We're pretty open on where we're going to be and shows we're going to attend. That's another way to meet with us. But take a look at our website, reach out to us, info, our careers, our LinkedIn. We like to interact with people, understand how to solve problems, people that want to join our team or even partner with us. So that's probably the best way to do it.
Perfect. And so parting words for all of the aspiring builders, operators, entrepreneurs out there. Give us, Jeff, your closing statement. What do people need to know about building in the nation's interests in these kind of hard tech critical industries? What do you got for them?
You took the words out of my mouth. It's hard tech. If it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be worth doing. There's definitely times where you kind of want to put your head in your hands, just push through. And Honestly, I say it to my team all the time, run at the chaos. You're going to learn something, so fail fast. Those are some of the best times to learn something. Yeah, we have a bunch of core principles to the company. 50 to get 90, Control Alt Z. Some of these things that we do allow us to adapt really fast and not hold ourselves up or any pride around, hey, we had to drop a design, go to this design. But if it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be worth doing. Just push forward, ask questions. There's a lot of people that are willing to help you ask a lot of questions, meet with those folks. I find that the industry is really welcoming to folks. It may seem like a pretty tight-knit, closed group, but everybody's trying to help one another.
Amen. That's the spirit across in the valley. And to that end, Jeff, we really appreciate you taking some time to come join us and to share what you've learned and what you're working on. I think it's inspiring to folks, and we will continue watching from this seat.
Awesome, Noah. Thank you. I really appreciate you asking me. I'm quite humbled. It's always wild to be a part of things like this. So thank you for helping me share our story and reaching others. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. Take care, Jeff.